Good morning. My name is Beth Wills. I'm a 49-year-old single female, and I wanted to share my infertility journey. It actually began when I was like 10 or 11 when my period started. I was the second oldest of seven children, so my mom had no problems having children. And it was so severe that I would have vomiting and diarrhea every single month. Very, very difficult periods, very painful. And moving into high school, it it even got worse, where my mom would have to come get me because I was in the bathroom at the high school and buckled over having vomiting and diarrhea. Not a fun journey. And then fast forward to my late teens into my early 20s while I was in college. Every month, I would have to say 2 of the 4 weeks of every month, I felt miserable. My mood, my weight, the bleeding was so heavy. So I went in to see Sandra Weisbaker in Grand Rapids, and she did my first laparoscopy where I was found out that I had second stage endometriosis. At that time, I was in a very stressful family situation. Both my parents were diagnosed with cancer. I was carrying the load of the person I was married to financially while he was going back to school. I was working a lot of hours in the medical field. So when I found out the news about what had happened, they said, go try to get pregnant. So I tried for 5 years unsuccessfully, and then I went back in for a second laparoscopy, and it was at stage 4. At that time, when I woke up at Spectrum Hospital, which was Butterworth, they told me I only had about a 5 or 10% chance of ever conceiving. And to a girl that came from a large family who loved children, who helped run her mom's daycare business, it was devastating because I wanted a child so bad. So another option was adoption, right? Well, unfortunately, my person that I was married to didn't want to adopt. So that really added to my, not just depression, but my value as a wife, as a woman. And then that also ended my marriage. I had a hysterosalpingogram by Dr. Dodds, I believe in 1997, where there was water in my tube, and I recognized I couldn't have a child with this man if it was going to cost that much money. And I went back to Sandra Weisbaker, and I was put on Lupron. That Lupron drug caused me to have memory issues, job loss, and it was set me in a tailspin of psychiatric drugs, which for many years I really truly didn't believe. I had all the conditions related to what they thought. I knew I was somewhat depressed due to my cycles. So fast forward, my parents both got sick, and I moved back to Traverse City, Michigan, where I found a reproductive endocrinologist psychiatrist. Actually, she was an endo and I can't even talk. A psychiatrist with endocrine specialty, and she weaned me by doing a calendar off of everything except for one antidepressant. And my parents both passed away, and I moved again to be closer to family. And then I met someone who got a job outside Chicago, and then I worked for as a practice manager. And in Chicago, at lunch, I met a Mayo-trained endocrinologist. Awesome, awesome guy. He told me to show me the charts of my medical records and my history. And he says, don't worry, we'll figure this out. So lo and behold, apparently my pituitary gland wasn't working. But not only did I have polycystic ovarian disease, but I had a hypopituitary, and I didn't have any FSH. So after several procedures of polypectomies and other cleaning out again, I started in vitro fertilization. At that time, believe it or not, everything went by textbook. I went in with my eyes wide open, not expecting anything, knowing that anything that happened was better than nothing. Paid $6,000 out of pocket for my injections, twice a day, ultrasounds 3 days a week, labs 3 days a week, and I got 15 beautiful eggs. Couldn't believe it. The embryologist said that they looked great for my age, like A plus or something. I didn't know. I guess just like chicken eggs, they are rated. So The good news is they did a 3 egg transfer on day 5, and I chemically felt pregnant on probably the 10th or the 11th day. I was supposed to go back in. I think it's on the 15th day to get your HSG levels checked, and I had a 80-pound dog who jumped on my stomach while I was laying on the couch, and she had never done that before. And of course I started bleeding and I lost the triplets. From there I was ready to adopt, and even went to an adoption agency. It was a national adoption agency, open adoption. A bunch of women started the business that were infertile. One was a marketer, one was an attorney, and I knew it would be about $14,000 to get it started, wrote letters. And after we met with them, which I thought it was a go, my new husband partner said, let's try IVF again. Well, that entailed more shots and more procedures, and the wonderful doctor I had was moving back to New York, and the partner doctor. So I stayed with the same practice, who happened to be merging with about 3 or 4 other world accredited, world renowned endometriosis study physicians, surgeons, reproductive specialists, and I started the path again where I only had 2 eggs transferred, but at this time something wasn't right. The eggs, something didn't feel right. I had such bad cramping, and they said, oh, don't worry, it's probably normal. Well, on day 10, a surgical sponge that was put in there or used after the egg retrieval came out of my body. So add that to the already anxiety of doing the IVF cycle again, and of course being told, oh, your body has a lot of bacteria, don't worry about it. And I still had to go get my lab test, which I already knew I wasn't pregnant. Again, I went to counseling with my partner. He said, well, we have a legal plan. We'll go to another lawyer. And the whole process, I recognized, is so non-natural. It is hard to deal with that journey without involving the feelings, the emotions, the financial strain. But the good news is, even though I wasn't successful, what I learned about myself is to love myself the way I am. That even though I have severe endometriosis issues, I took my chart to another group of physicians because I just wanted to feel better, and scheduled a surgery the day after my 40-something birthday to have a partial hysterectomy. Now, I didn't agree with the physician with leaving my right ovary behind or my cervix because of my history and my family, but I woke up 6.5 hours later in a private room, and I don't know what happened in that OR. I could have maybe not made it, crashed or something, but when I woke up and then I had to go to my post-op appointment with 42 staples across my stomach, I recognized how strong I really was. I had been strong for my parents as patient advocates, and I needed to find that inner strength for myself. Because on that day 10, I came to the office by myself, stopped taking my pain drug just to get there, and he said, I'm really sorry, Beth, you have endometrial cancer. And I said, well, the good news is you took out my uterus, right? And he said, yes, but we still left the other parts. And I said, why? And he goes, you need to go to a gynae oncologist. So I went right away to a German gynae oncologist in Wheaton, Illinois. And then she wanted to cut everything else out they left behind. And I said, time out. I want a second opinion. So then I went down to the University of Chicago, where they re-looked at my pathology slides and said, we think it's hyperplasia, not endometriosis or endometrial cancer. And I said, great. So I didn't have to do chemo or radiation, but I had to be checked all the time. So fast forward a couple more months and checking up every 6 months or whatever, everything kept coming back okay. Well, I'm 49 now and I'm having complications, and I've returned to Michigan. I've had another huge loss in my life. My sister, at age 35 with 3 kids, committed suicide. And from that journey, I recognized you need to have an emotionally available partner. No matter what happens in your life, you need a support system. And if it's not in your nuclear family, then seek out the resources that can help you. So my journey is not over. My thyroid's acting up. I wish for the best for anyone going through this. But look for those supportive, unconditional people in your life that love you the way you are. Thank you.